I'm calling to order the Westford Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. This meeting is being broadcast live by Westford Cable Access TV and recorded for playback online. By attending this meeting, you're consenting to your audio and likeness being recorded for this purpose. The first item on our agenda at 7 p.m. is open forum. Do any members of the commission have something for open forum?
I defer.
Okay. You're do you want to?
I did. Yeah, do you want to say something? Noelle Donovan, former member of this commission, and I officially resigned last night at the select board meeting, and I wanted to say thank you to all of you for everything that you've taught me. Working with you has been a real pleasure, and I appreciate everything you do for the town. And I look forward to working with you as my new appointed position on the select board. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
Good luck.
All for helping conservation. Thank you for helping the trees and water.
Very welcome.
Huh? Okay. Noelle, we've got one last thing for you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been great having you.
Take care.
You.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You going to the carnival? Yeah.
Okay. Any other members of the, Matt, do you have anything else for open forum?
Yes, just for the audience watching, as we currently have a vacancy, if there is interest in joining the Conservation Commission, please submit citizen activity forms. I think we're going to try to collect them through the beginning of July. We'll kind of look to have interviews with the commission beginning of July and kind of work to fill in the position, start of fiscal year 26. I also plan to reach out to a couple of the residents who submitted CAFs in the past couple years while we've had a full commission to see if they still have interest in joining and coming before the commission.
One other thing is where Noelle was our liaison to the Agricultural Commission. If anybody is interested in serving in that role, even temporarily, you know.
Yeah, I'm not sure she was going to the meetings at the end, but she was
Right.
in touch. Yeah.
And in the interim, we can have, you know, if any issues come up for the Agricultural Commission that are relevant for us, you know, we can ask Mark Weller to email Matt and myself, but I'm just putting it out there. If somebody has an interest in that direction, think about it. Do any members of the audience have something for open forum?
It's a quiet audience.
Yeah. So moving on to our next 7 p.m. agenda item. It's a continuation of the public hearing and issue order of conditions for Westford Department of Public Works Plain Road Sidewalk Project Phase 2.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jeremy Downs. I'm the Assistant Town Engineer. So since the last meeting, based on comments that we received from the Commission, we had our designer TC look at kind of reconfiguring and redesigning the entrance to the Stony Brook Conservation Area. You can see up on the screen.
I don't know how to get rid of this. I'm sorry.
Got set. So we basically have the curb ramp is in the same location it was in the previous design. We've kind of rotated 90 degrees, so now it's pushing pedestrians more into the property, and then they take a right turn into the new apron that we're proposing to pave. So extending back from the existing gutter line of Depot Street, going back about 25 feet and then about 24 feet wide. This will be a new paved entrance. On either side of the entrance in this area here would have granite curb, as well as in this location here. We're also, since the last meeting, the abutter to this property reached out to us and basically was showing us an existing erosion problem they have with street drainage that's just running off unmitigated onto their property and eroding the shoulder. So the solution that we had was to extend this curb that we're proposing up to their driveway and kind of direct the stormwater to a new leaching catch basin that we're proposing here. And then, since we have the ability, we're removing all the pavement in here, we felt having a curb break right near the basin and then having just a small depression would give us a little stormwater feature. As you recall, one of the comments from DEP is they felt we weren't doing enough as far as stormwater management. So by adding the leaching basin and then the small depression, we're addressing those concerns. Also, one of the comments from DEP was we weren't providing any compensatory flood storage. So now this area here, we're removing the pavement, and adjacent to the new sidewalk, we have an area here where we can create a small depression that will more than offset the flood area that's being filled by us constructing this new entrance. To begin with, the filling is very minimal. I think we're at 90 cubic feet. This depression here can give us up to, I think, 150 cubic feet, so we'll more exceed the required compensatory storage. Flood storage. So that's basically the improvements that we've made. We feel paving the entrance, it would be good for this property. I took a drive through there earlier today, and it's really full of potholes and in really tough shape.
Jim?
That was the topic I was just going to raise, the paving of the entrance. The county layout is up here is the boundary for the roadway, right?
Correct.
And over here is the boundary for the railroad.
Correct.
And this part is East Boston camps, right?
Yes.
That's within the jurisdiction of the conservation restriction, right? And we've already been told in no uncertain terms from the.
I think,
Well, that was paving the,
Oh, I
okay.
didn't finish my sentence.
Sorry.
I was just gonna ask
We've
this.
been informed by the Westford Land Preservation Foundation that
Right,
paving is a no-go. So I think we ought to ask them about,
I was gonna ask if they saw this.
well, and
I don't think anybody's seen it except us,
Yeah.
but I think that's something we should ask.
so,
But
so my intention was for the revised plan to come before the commission and get your guys' thoughts on, based upon the feedback of the.
I'm okay with that. I
Right,
like
right,
the idea.
and then between, and prior to, look over the draft special conditions, the draft findings, get any input related to them. And then in the interim 2 weeks between now and the commission's next meeting, reach out to the Land Preservation Foundation as CR
Give them all this
grantee.
stuff.
Yep,
Exactly.
and again, and Jeremy, in
So
kind
we're
of
on the same
discussing.
page.
Done before the Westford Land Preservation Foundation about the roadway into the camps.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. I've had discussions
and
with
they didn't want
Director
any,
Hal
they didn't
Fox.
want any
All right.
pavement.
What I would like to point out is this area is paved now. It's just in really tough shape.
Tough,
And
right.
Right, and we are removing some, I think we're removing about 800 square feet of pavement. So there'll be less pavement than exists
Be a
today.
good thing to tell them, yeah.
Yeah, right, and that's part of, again, the, trying to type and talk at the same time, certainly a skill, haven't figured out yet. In terms of the conservation restriction, it is allowed, pavement of existing paved, is a reserved right.
Is it really paved or is it the?
No,
or is it
it's-
the
here's,
scarfaced,
here's,
asphalt peeled off of
It's-
elsewhere in town?
Soon it's not going to be pavement because it's just deteriorating and
Right,
potholes. And
right.
So if you look, here's Google Street View, the sign, with the sign for reference, kind of just again to reorient
Yep.
the commission. The sign, it's grayed out and just beyond the proposed kind of pavement apron. So if, a lateral kind of, that's all pavement, you can see.
At least half of it is paved, maybe a little more, maybe less.
Right, so, where I think this is a paved, I would describe this as a paved area that is, not, when you look further in, and again, this imagery is from
Even less.
September
paved.
23. Right, I mean, that's,
Yes.
the wrap material, but certainly the first, I don't know, Jeremy, I think we measured it, 40 feet is patch pavement over time.
Either way, I
So-
think we got to make the request.
Nope, I do want to, make them aware and kind of get their okay as well.
Okay, good.
Marilyn?
I was gonna say, once we have our agreement here, then I'd like to see it brought to them before we make any plans about what we're doing, and then get blessing and move on with that. I wouldn't try to do something and then be defending it. Okay?
Yep, nope, that was kind of
Since
the,
they announced it here at this meeting, about what they didn't want.
One question on the plan, Jerry, with, where it says LNS, I'm presuming that the area where the two depressions are and inside the curves there, or the square there, that's all loamed and seeded?
That's correct. So this is just an exhibit, a sketch plan, as we talked
Yeah.
last time. I didn't want to have our designer, do all the, put all the details and update the plan set, unless this is, the
But it
commission is
just,
on.
yeah, but
Yeah.
this is going to be, this is not just gonna be a depression, it's gonna be a grass depression.
Correct, yes.
So,
yes.
you know-
It's all,
But we
so
can agree,
vegetated.
But we need the other.
Right.
So that we have no animosity, so that we have an agreement, and we go forward
Yeah.
collectively.
If somebody doesn't know what LNS means,
Lumen seed. So that will be more clear in the final plan set that we develop.
no?
So, quick question about drainage. So, where does the water go from there?
So this is really a low point here. So, this will be a leach and catch basin that will basically have holes in it, so it'll leach into the ground.
Okay.
And then the depression here would be just a depression, a low point. This, the survey shows that this area here grades, it's fairly flat, but it does come out kind of this way. So and we're showing the small depression here. We have the ability, here's the tree line. We have this area in here if we had to expand that a little bit to accommodate any additional runoff.
How old is this area? How old is the area? The way it is now?
How,
How old is it? I said, how long? From the beginning?
probably.
I mean,
Okay.
we can
I'm
go,
not sure.
I'm just curious.
going back to '07, this is the,
Right, so it looks like there's been some patchwork. You can see the old edge of pavement for Depot, and then, the apron has been paved, I'm assuming now multiple times to address, the conditions that we see out there today. Yeah, it's a little better condition there.
But there's no flooding there, right?
Not that
Is
we're,
this-
we do have a couple catch basins. And as I mentioned, you can almost see here where the erosion's occurring on this property.
Now, is that erosion from Depot, or is that erosion because of the flow coming down plain and they're just sheeting?
I think it's probably a combination of both. I don't know if you can see, right there is a catch basin, but we suspect with this grade that there might be some bypass.
Well, there used to be a catch basin here in the road, because I can remember trying to drive around it heading north, and so I think there was at one time, it was lower down to the point that you didn't want to drive over it, so, yeah, if it's more grade.
Yeah, so it's more at grade now, so it probably was lower, they probably, adjusted that because of that reason. But yeah, you can see the erosion. So we're just trying to, accommodate and prevent this from occurring, and all this is ending up in Keys Brook eventually.
So when does the foundation see this?
When
No.
would the work start if everything was passed?
We were hoping that we were going to start in June, but I think, as I mentioned at the last meeting, before Newport Construction is going to do this work, and they need to finish the Phase 1 project, which they haven't done yet. So that's going to be the priority, and I think that will go at least through June. So
Because
our hope is June, but it's probably
the
going to be
summer
July.
camp is running through July, August, right?
Yeah, so I did have that conversation with Matt, and, there's a whole linear project, and there's a lot of work to get done. So we, I think, can coordinate this area to off-peak times when there's not a lot of buses and, parents bringing kids to the,
Well, are you also going to start with the end of the sidewalk up? So I guess this project spans this work here as well as the sidewalk coming down from Grassy Pond.
correct.
Are you starting at one end or the other?
So we haven't worked that out yet with the
Yes.
contractor. Yeah. Are we gonna start at Grassy Pond and work our way down? I'm not sure what they're gonna do. They'll have to put some of this drainage in before they put in the curb and sidewalk, so that might be what they do first.
Okay.
So until we have a pre-construction meeting with them to go over the details of this, I really can't say. But we have some flexibility to kind of avoid creating, chaos at this entrance when we do this proposed work. It is really wide today, so we could do it in phases, one half and then the other, and probably still be out of the way of people entering and exiting the property.
And Marilyn, you were asking about the notification process to the CR holder?
Yeah,
So if this plan is amenable to the commission, I'll send it out tomorrow.
Perfect. Perfect.
Copy, Margaret as well.
They get 30 days, is it? going to the CR?
I mean,
I know,
I think
they can do it
it depends
quicker.
on, again, I think the timeline is specific to if this is one of those things with which the grantee is to receive notice and, and
Yep.
again, I think in the language, it allows for repaving of existing paved areas, which is an allowed right, which is an allowed by right activity. And so, again, I will have to cross my Ts, dot my Is, but, I will have that out. Whether it is a cursory email, kind of just let them know, or, to Jim's point, if it does need to follow the notification processes of which they, for their approval, I think that's actually 60 days, but
but you could advise them about what you would like to see happen because of the time.
right.
The CR does say that they should, not take extra time and try to do it in an expedited manner, just like we should do it as soon as we know about what we want. So if this is what we want, we should let them know as soonest,
That's how it should be.
which is reasonable on both sides.
Do any members of the audience have any comments or questions on this project?
So, sorry. is it
Would
kept-
you
oh,
come up
sorry.
and tell us who you are?
Just curious. I'm Dave Barr. There's a catch basin in the middle of where that driveway is going to be. Where does that go?
The catch basin, the existing catch basin is right here, and that's gonna, we're gonna retain that, so it's gonna remain in place.
And that's just a
It's a
retention?
it's a leaching basin.
Okay, yeah, okay. Just curious, thanks.
So next steps.
Um,
So we're gonna,
We should look at the CR.
Yep, we'll look at the CR, send
No,
out,
not CR, the,
oh, the special conditions.
conditions,
I was like,
yes.
yeah, CR, yeah.
Did you have any comments or questions on that?
I think it's,
Conditions?
no, just overall the design, I appreciate the commission's comments. I think this is, actually an improvement over what we had originally. We were trying to minimize impacts, but I think this is a better design.
Okay, yeah. No, we appreciate the, hearing our concerns and coming up with a good solution.
Did receive comments from a commissioner regarding this double finding, but the intent was, as they're both related to catch basins, to kind of lump them together into one paragraph. Another question did come out about kind of the maintenance of the proposed grassed area or grassed areas within the curbing. And I think I think that can be addressed as a finding, because again, I'm anticipating this to be likely the roadside seed mix of grasses so that it's, native, but tolerant of salts and all the, anthropogenic impacts with which it'll face. And also not require too regular mowing and maintenance, but include that as a finding.
So at this point, with the need to, so we would notify the
Foundation.
CR holder before issuing the order of
Yes,
conditions?
I think that makes the most sense, so that in the event they say no, we need to revert back to a previous kind of edition, then we can do so without reopening the public hearing or amending or going anything like that.
So should we continue to the 28th?
Yes, with the honor.
We can have a motion to continue the public hearing to May 28th.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
So they're getting this detailed plan for the entrance
Yep.
and the order of conditions. And a request to review it as soon as possible, because they want to start sometime this summer.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to our 7:10 PM agenda item, it's a public hearing for Graziani, 103 Forest Road.
Yeah, you read it first.
Sure. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's non-zoning wetlands bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 14, 2025 at 7:10 PM in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 5 Main Street, to consider the request for determination of applicability application of Nancy Graziani for after-the-fact approval for construction of an approximately 450 square foot deck within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands at 103 Forest Road. Assessors map 045, parcel 0084, lot 0000.
Good evening, Nancy Graziani, 103 Forest Road.
This request came about during the certificate of compliance process for the garage addition. If you'd like to kind of, they have the copies of the plan, if you kind of.
Sure, so the addition was put on in 2002, and it was lapsed to have this finalized, and then the deck wasn't in the original plan, but it's been there since, for 20 odd years. So these drawings are current, and it indicates that the deck at the closest point is 58 feet from the border of what today looks like the wetlands. The original drawings for the addition, the wetlands weren't this large at the time, but so this is more accurate and up to date of what's there at the moment. Yeah.
And from my site visit, I think the wetlands may be enlarged a little bit right now because of some clogging of the culvert underneath Briarwood.
Yes.
So I think the wetlands probably are fairly consistent with what, but the edge of kind of ponded water may be a little bit higher. I did stop out during the certificate of compliance request and did kind of march off distances from the existing deck, which is pervious underneath on footings, to the edges of the wetlands, and certainly is consistent with what is shown on this plan and consistent with the setbacks, the commission's setbacks as promulgated under the rules and regulations.
Does it look like it's on the order of 50 or 60 feet to the wetlands? Okay.
Any questions from commissioners? Any questions on this project from members of the audience? Okay. So this is just a conditional negative
It's
already built?
actually, it's not a conditional negative, it's just a
I'm
negative.
sorry, it's a negative determination of applicability?
Yep.
So can I have a motion for a negative determination of applicability?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's all good.
Set.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For signatures.
Moving on to our 7:15 PM agenda item, it's a continuation of a public hearing and issue amended order of conditions for the Friends of Forge Pond and Littleton Clean Lakes Committee.
Hi, I'm Dave Barr. I'm a member of the Westford Health Lakes and Ponds Collaborative, Littleton Clean Lakes Committee, and Friends of Forge Pond. We talked about this last time. There was some discussion Matt was going to put together a,
Yeah, so if I could jump in, including the commission's packet were, as a lot of the discussion focused on the use of dicot as being the most effective herbicide for the species present, I resorted back to the final generic environmental impact report on eutrophication in Massachusetts, as this was the document prepared in 2004, kind of that then kind of ceased that made it so lake management projects did not need to do an individual environmental impact report. The state kind of provided the overall for review by commissioners and for lake managers. Highlighted in the first table, again, this is the effective GEIR from 2004. On the second page of table 4-5, the submergent species, variable water milfoil and Eurasian water milfoil, they go through the approved aquatic herbicides at that time for their efficacy, with C being consistent control and P being partial control. And for those two species, the two consistent control, the two herbicides with which provided consistent control, one was dicot that was discussed. The other was 2,4-D, which included in the amended notice of intent was not to be used as it has drinking water restrictions imposed by the state and EPA. So in addition to that, I did provide a couple pages from the draft Massachusetts Guide to Algae and Aquatic Plant Management. Once again, kind of updating the GEIR, again, for the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation as a resource for lake management in the state. Again, they changed the tables up a little bit, but it does similar in terms of the effective control, herbicides with which provide high level of control with a typical application rate for the two water milfoil species, with which are the most prevalent invasive species. Both dicot and 2,4-D, again, both list high level of control. Additionally, there were two other herbicides, triclopyr, or active ingredients, triclopyr and fluoroperoxyfenbenzyl, with which do. Those are systemic herbicides that have a much higher price tag associated with them for their control. And so I know the commission wanted, as part of the draft special conditions, wanted something to show that, if these are the target species, that dicot is the most, the most efficacious, has the highest efficacy. Making up words. For the management of the species. I know there was discussion about dicot being banned by the European Union for its use there. In my research, I found that was related to potato farming, as potato farmers were using it inconsistent with the label, and that was why the European Union, in my opinion, why the European Union banned it. I was unable to find anything specific from a government website or press release, but kind of looking at
why they wanted to ban it, or they just mentioned the reference to the potato farm.
It was related to the potato farmers. They were using it as a desiccant, so to burn off the leaves before they harvest potatoes, to kind of stop the growth. And that was not an approved use of it, or not an approved use on the label for its, and that was, they were using higher rates, they were, not following the application, required application procedures, and having non-target impacts.
The condition 52 is the one that addresses the backlog. And it really doesn't provide any limitations. It just says if it's necessary, use it. And it doesn't say who decides that it's necessary, how much gets used, where it gets used. I don't like that. There are other alternatives that are used for, what they say, partial control or greater.
C is consistent and P,
Partial control or greater for the
With multiple applications or a higher dose.
Right,
So,
yep.
I mean,
So there are other alternatives. It's not like there's only one treatment possible that works. Might be the best, might be the absolute best, according to the charts, but there are other alternatives.
So if it needs more applications, it may be more expensive. Some of the others that are newer ones that are consistent, also being systemic, they're also more expensive. We might not be able to afford to do the same.
You don't have any prices for any of this,
You haven't come
right?
before CPA either.
There's no prices on any of these.
yeah, but I think you're looking at taking action this summer, and
Right.
CPA
Yeah, so-
wouldn't.
But there's no prices, information at all
Yeah.
now, so it's just a guess that the other ones are more expensive.
I can certainly find, again,
So I have talked to Solitude, and they confirmed that, the systemic ones do cost like twice as much as the contact herbicides. We haven't assessed which ones they would recommend as being most appropriate. We would also want to talk to the Department of Conservation and Recreation. They have a lot of experience with it. We'd like to get their guidance also once we have
Your map of treatment, in terms of what parts of the lake you're treating for which.
in terms of what they would recommend using, given what we need to be what plants and what areas we need to be treating.
So given the distribution of the different plant species, you might be using different products in different parts of the lake based on the targeted species you're trying to eradicate?
Well, like Jim said, there may be several possible treatments that we could be using for, the main thing we're going to be treating, we know, is Eurasian milfoil. Also some variable milfoil. I don't think we'll have enough money to do the fanwort. And we would be looking for guidance from both the applicator and the DCR on which ones they would recommend and what the costs are, and then we'll have to see what.
I'd be okay if we get something from the applicator and from DCR that indicates, what they recommend using. I
Well,
would rather stay away from dicot.
It would change from year to year.
Depends how much you're using,
Well-
what you're going after, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out exactly what you're suggesting.
I'd like to, before it's applied, I'd like to hear how the decision was made, what to use.
Well, and do we want to, also where this is the first year of using herbicides, would we also want to report at the end of the season to say how effective was the treatment program?
So they've been providing report, maybe
Well, no.
not at the end of season, but
I'm thinking, how effective was the herbicide treatment to know whether it was fantastic and you now know what works well, or you didn't get the results you were hoping for, and that if you need to use an herbicide treatment next year, you might consider, looking at a different treatment method, a different herbicide.
Yes, that's true, right.
Do you know
Um,
the cost of these?
Next year, we're hoping to do eco harvesting.
Okay,
And that with all of these, with these different methods available to us, depending on what the lake condition is, depending on how successful the drawdowns have been, depending on what our funding is, the herbicides are a lot more cost, they're less expensive than the eco harvesting. The eco harvesting is a bit more expensive. So we would go from year to year to see what we think is possible. I would just also say that I found a reference in that California uses dicot in their to fight their invasive species in the Sacramento area, and it's there they call it the California Delta, and the citation says that because California public drinking water is drawn through the Delta as part of the California Water Project, trace amounts of dicot are in much of the state's water supply. So that's one example of where it's, I mean, California, you always see, you know, the warning labels on all these things that nobody else worries about.
are you, with where do you stand with Littleton right now?
We had, on the 8th, we got confirmation that we should go for an amendment.
Okay,
We were scheduled to have a hearing on the 22nd of April. The commission, at the last minute, realized they didn't have a quorum, so we were postponed until last night. Last night they had a quorum. We started to discuss it. One of the members recused himself from the discussion because he lives on the lake. I don't know why that would necessarily be a problem, but with his recusal, they now didn't have a quorum, and so they stopped the hearing, and now we're scheduled to have a hearing in 2 weeks.
so I guess, Marilyn?
I just want to know what kind of cost you're talking about when you talk about a cost.
So
What do you think? Just give me the number you got for that.
this year we have almost $20,000 to.
You want to know how much it's going to cost to do this, right?
So
I'm
for
asking CPA. 'cause that's what I mean. I'm
Maryland,
asking
for
what
example,
kind of number.
NAB and long sought for annually, their annual herbicide management of the invasive species is in the $9,000 to $12,000 range.
Okay, so we're not talking a lot of money. We are.
Well, those are contact herbicides.
Yes, and that is using, you know, the contact herbicide dicot.
So, I mean, one of the things that we need to sort out is, one of our objectives in doing it this year is to hopefully get a better position to do eco harvesting next year. And the best way to do that would be using systemic herbicides because they would carry over past this season.
Originally, our preference had been not to use the herbicides at all, but to use the eco harvesting, right?
Well,
Except there were problems with
so
that, the machines breaking down and that sort of thing.
Well, there's also DEP that says they have to have a dredging permit.
So we had funding from Littleton to do a significant eco harvesting this summer, and that was the plan. But DEP said they were treating it as dredging. We had to get a dredging permit. We started last fall to get the dredging permit, first steps, and they said, no, you can't do that first step until the spring. And so starting this spring, we won't be able to get it until late summer or the fall. So that precludes us being able to do eco harvesting this year. The one advantage to that is that if we can potentially get CPC funding from Westford for next year, we could do the whole lake next year, because,
You didn't come in with a plan, but you certainly could.
well, so, I mean, that's, I'm just, that would, be sort of an ideal situation. There have been, we have reports where the eco harvesting is more effective in cases, there are cases where it's been found to be more effective when herbicides are first used to remove some of the plant load ahead of time so that there's less that has to be eliminated with the eco harvesting because it's very expensive.
Okay. In terms of where things, because this is kind of got to move forward in two towns. Could Westford say, yes, you can do this, and Littleton say, no, you can't? And does,
I'm not sure, I bet they could.
So we our funding. So we had funding last year from Westford Health Lakes and Ponds and from the Littleton Clean Lakes Committee to do eco harvesting because the DEP ruling that they were saying eco harvesting, they're considering it to be dredging. We could only do 100 cubic yards. So we could only use roughly half of the funding that we had from both of the committees. Our hope was to carry that funding forward on both lakes to do the herbicides this year. Littleton was amenable to us doing that with our funding from Littleton. Westford Health Lakes and Ponds Collaborative needed to pull back the funding that we didn't use because that's really the only funding that Health Lakes and Ponds has for this year, aside from another 5,000 that town meeting approved.
Littleton doesn't have CPC? Do they have it?
Yeah, they do. And our eco harvesting for next year is from CPC funding. The money that we had from last year for eco harvesting was from the water department, and we can use it for this year as long as our treatments are done by the end of June.
okay.
But we don't, because Health Lakes and Ponds didn't have additional funding this year, they had to use the funding we had left over for the surveys and other general activities for all the lakes in town. So that money is not available for us to do the herbicide treatments in Westford this year.
Okay.
So our treatments would only be done in Littleton this year.
Okay. So herbicide, so we're not even talking about herbicides in Westford for 2025.
That's correct.
Okay. So,
We're still also waiting for Natural Heritage's response,
okay.
Um,
So,
which both by Dave and my accounts, is past the 30-day limit for.
By a week and a half.
Right. So continuing it 2 weeks, see if we can get Natural Heritage comments, and
see where it's,
see if Littleton and Westford, again, they meet the 27th, the commission meets the 28th. Being 13 days before, having one issued 13 days before the other doesn't really gain us much in terms of kind of something happening. So
so,
I was just gonna say, remind me what, if you just send me a note, because I'm gonna forget. But in terms of finding out timing for CPC, so we can get you in line here, so you
Right.
can develop
Yep.
something.
Yep.
Because I think it's a no-brainer. I just don't see it as a real
Yeah.
issue.
so
As
shall
well
we,
as possibly funding it.
okay, so shall we continue the public hearing to May 28th? At that point, where things are with Littleton, and we'll have National Heritage straightened out. But some of it also is, if you're not going to be doing herbicides in Westford
This year.
this year, I hear what you're saying, Jim, about how do we, you had concerns
You
of,
have no plans to use herbicides next year, because next year you want to use the eco harvesting, right?
well,
That is our current thought, but, I mean, we have this order of conditions in place as part of a broader process with treatments that we can use to try to mitigate the eutrophication of the lake. And it's going to be used for years.
And this,
And all of these things need to be used together. None of them by themselves are going to be adequate.
and this order of conditions, or this amended order of conditions also allows you to do the suction harvesting.
Right.
So, I guess in terms of a path forward,
The original plan was never even to use the herbicide, it was eco harvesting, right? And this was only added in because the delays with the eco harvesting.
well,
We can get by with.
not just the delays, but also the because you couldn't do the eco harvesting to the full extent last year, they've had an extensive regrowth of the biomass that,
Yeah, and, from year to year, the conditions change, and being able to use these different procedures that are available, that are approved by the state from year to year, gives us the ability to best try to mitigate the eutrophication. Other lakes use this all the time. We haven't. We don't want to use it as, year after year after year after year, because we know there are long-term effects. But in certain cases, it may be the appropriate thing. And to avoid, we're getting it this year for Littleton because we want to do the treatment in Littleton this year. Going through the
Around in
process.
circles for like the last
Okay.
15 minutes, I don't think we're changing anything any which
So-
way. So, how do we want to proceed? You want to continue it? And
Yes, I would recommend continuing it to the commission's meeting on May 28th. I would also like if anybody has any draft language for 52.
avoid the use of dicot.
or just better clarify the conditions under which it is used.
Dicot is approved by EPA, it is approved by
Didn't say it wasn't.
Massachusetts DAR. The other lakes all use it.
All lakes don't use it. Some do.
Nab and Long sought for is, and
We mean by all lakes, I guess,
I mean,
right?
Is there a lake in Westford that doesn't, other than Forge?
that doesn't manage. Keys has used it from time to time. Burgess, Kennedy, and Flushing, Grassy. The years it has water.
Grassy doesn't even have count. It's wet now, it's pretty good.
Okay, what we want to do is come up with revisions to 52, condition 52, that are agreeable to members of the commission for, under the conditions which dicot would be approved for use. So, anyway, could be. Could I have a motion to continue the public hearing until May 28th? All those in favor? Aye.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you. And moving on to our 7:20 PM agenda item, it's a continuation of a public hearing for Yang, 88 Tadmouth Road.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm Jinji Young of 88 Tadmouth. I'm not sure how much progress there was on going through this, months ago.
Yeah, I did look at the meeting minutes. I think the representative did kind of explain the goals of this application, the proposal of this application, including constructing a second loop access to Tadmouth Road, shown kind of by the stippling. There was some modest drainage associated with that, with that increase of impervious area. And also a deck was proposed to the rear of the dwelling, in proximate to the septic tank. The meeting minutes looks like the discussion after the initial presentation of the proposal went in a direction regarding that ended up being the enforcement order and the amended order of conditions as well. And so I agree, I don't know how much had been discussed. Included in the plan details, so this was a revised plan, although it did just, it showed the revised septic line location, the drainage manhole, and the property line as agreed to by both surveyors. The deck was proposed on sonotubes. Do you recall what the footing is for the deck posts?
The posts
holding it
that
up?
hold the deck
What's
up.
holding it up?
What's on the ground?
I think there's not really anything there, right? Like you don't see it. Like in the yard right now?
No, when the deck is proposed, it'll need to have,
Oh, I
like a
don't
concrete
think-
footing, or like a concrete foundation for your house. It needs to be resting on something. So that can be something to, again, I can go see if I can find the original public.
Yeah, I don't think there was any like specific details about the
Okay,
deck.
so that may be.
The missing piece.
There's various construction methodologies, they can be sonotubes or, kind of precast, concrete
Giant
piers.
foot, whatever they're called.
Yeah,
There's the screw-in kind.
yeah, helical piers. There's a lot of different things, and so I think, kind of
We have to know that.
if you had here we go. Sierra's, how is it proposed to be installed? No architectural, constructed with sonotubes. So crushed stone underneath the deck, sonotubes, so kind of a concrete cylinder, and square footage of the new drafted, the new driveway, and kind of how much is within the buffer zone. So are there any, so that's kind of where things are at with what's proposed. Does the commission have any questions related to this proposal? One thought I had, where we've kind of had the new, the landscape architect's planting plan, have that be added to this plan just so that,
Oh, yeah.
this plan still does show, pines that are no longer present, kind of.
Updated.
Yeah, well, updated to the existing conditions, with respect to whether, the presence of trees or not, but also, to the kind of the renaturalization area that was required as part of the other notice of intent and order of conditions, down gradient of the leaching field, have a similar, the plantings from the landscape architecture plan, landscape architect's plan, added to this to kind of show all information on one plan, so it's not flipping back and forth between,
So every contractor working with a plan sees all the pieces, the trees and the building.
and especially where, and I think the landscape architect did, trace off, I think, this proposed plan, because this, the second entrance is shown. But we want to make sure that, the plantings weren't being proposed within that area. That's ultimately, to be removed. And, so.
Okay, I can have them make those lines.
So they should have new drawings, so it wouldn't be confusing.
Well, it needs to be one plan of record, yes.
We put the, good job, we thought about that, we put it in. And so one of the other things, just to get clarity from the commission on, the deck is proposed at 37.6 feet from the BVW, down gradient BVW. That is, the plan does show the 30-foot no disturb buffer with which it still maintains. It is within the 55-foot no build, but as seen from the original, or from the existing dwelling is located within that 55. As this lot was constructed, I think in the 60s or 70s, prior to the town's adoption of both the Wetlands Protection Act, or maybe it was the 80s, but certainly prior to the town's adoption of the local wetland bylaw and the setback regulations promulgated therefore. So just something to, is the commission okay with this deck being proposed at 37.6? Its proposed size is 12 by 30. So that's,
So any comments or questions from members of the commission?
Yeah.
I can't hear you, but.
We are okay with,
They have no comments or questions or concerns.
there's no other option to put a
Right,
deck
they
around
have
the
nothing,
house.
I mean, that's what
Yeah,
they want.
and actually, if they tried to put the deck, slide it one way or the other along the back of the house, it potentially could even get closer, so this may be the best location.
one thought I do have now, just looking at it, I would like to get confirmation from the health department regarding, because the edge of the proposed deck is on top, is overhanging the septic tank and in close proximity to the pump chamber. I just want to confirm with them that they don't have any setback. They're not going to say, oh, that's, it needs to be 5 feet from something and then we need to reconfigure. But I can get my colleagues' input on that with respect to the installed septic system, because that's, we don't want to impact that putting in a
And
sonotube.
that's a steep slope there, right?
Yeah, 7 or 8 feet down to the wetlands.
Yeah, I think, it's a slope. They're steeper in town.
The point is, it's going to be pretty high, the deck, right? The back of the deck is going to be pretty high off the ground.
So the garage floor is 91 feet. This is 80.
89.
Well,
Yeah,
it's actually
87, 88. So, 4
3
feet.
or 4 feet.
Yeah.
So
I'm
it's
just
not,
saying, they shouldn't use it for storage of, especially anything like, that might contain,
Gas. Yeah. So certainly, we can include that in the,
As I know,
in a special condition to, shall be remain in, dry storage. No hazardous materials shall be kept underneath
no,
it.
specific.
so anything that's going to go downhill very quickly.
so at this point, do any members of the audience have comments or questions on this project?
Good evening, Ronald Deshane, 86 Tadmuck Road. Would like to go back to where the revised septic has been moved, and I have a couple of questions about that. Okay, so the contractor was out last week, Thursday and Friday, digging that up. I had a good-sized pile of dirt on my property. My question is, the manhole, I measured that from the distance of it from my property now, where my property stakes are, and I measure 4 feet. So is that sufficient?
I mean, again, this was what was proposed, so I don't think I've seen an as-built plan for, that's really I think a health department regulation. I don't,
Okay.
know if, I mean, the order of conditions, the amended order of conditions didn't have anything. It was, the red line plan on this is the proposed amended location of the drain hole man cover and septic lines. I haven't seen anything that,
So the Board of Health would be the one that would say, oh, that's, if that was too close to the property line, that would be something the Board of Health would say.
yes.
Because they were out last Thursday and Friday inspecting and making sure, we sent them an email just to make sure that they knew that he was working there.
Okay.
And my other question is, he's put down a lot of hay where he dug up. So now on my side of the property, where my property line is running, maybe a good 40 feet down.
Actually, can you hand him that laser pointer? That way you can show us exactly where you mean.
So where are we here?
There should be a green dot.
Yeah.
There you are.
So that's the manhole right there?
Yep.
I'll say this is a street side, okay? So probably 15, 20 feet on my side. He's put hay down here, and then running along her property and then my property, I've got a good 40 feet of hay all on this side.
If you're getting property incursions again at the same operation, I think you have an issue.
I mean, I think again, the hay was put down as, actually, I think it probably was straw. But whatever was put down to stabilize, as a stabilization measure over the winter. And I know when I was last out inspecting the erosion controls that were installed prior to their work, some of the grasses and, the ground cover has started to sprout in Germany. And that's the goal is, until that occurs, have, that straw and, straw hay be utilized so that any runoff or, precipitation doesn't wash it, the topsoils and everything down into the.
Are you saying that based on the work they did to relocate the manhole cover, there's now new straw on the ground?
Yeah.
Would they have put down,
From what I hear him say.
would they have, excuse me?
Exactly, but from what I heard him say, it's not a negative.
No, but it just,
But you should have known that it was coming.
But I think the question is, did they also put seed down so that the straw is on top of something that will germinate to regrow?
He told me that he added more seed.
Okay, so he put more seed and then put the straw on top of it?
Yeah.
Okay, so the straw would just be to help keep it stable while the seed grows?
Okay. Because I was wondering at what point, how long is this going to be down? Because I'd like to reseed my side of the property. But if he's done that.
Right, yeah, and I can certainly try to stop out either tomorrow. I know it's going to be wet. I think Friday maybe as well. Try to get out during a time where it's not as, the rain's not as prevalent, and see if I can see any seed down. That's to ensure that the topsoil that was put down doesn't just get washed down into, because it's, let's see, 97 to 79 and 20 vertical feet. We don't want that. We want what gets put down to stay where it is. And that's a regular construction method to keep.
No, thank you. We don't have any issues with her deck or her driveway.
Okay. Have we finalized things with where we are with the planting plan?
We were emailing, the homeowner emailed yesterday, I responded today, we should be finalized tomorrow.
Okay, so, and with the larger caliper trees on the adjacent property?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Any other comments or questions on this project? So in terms of continuing, we need to get an updated plan with the plantings. Are there other details you need to check with the Board of Health about the deck, proximity to the septic components? We need an updated plan. Is there anything else that we need?
I don't think so. I may also provide this to the DPW director, as this will be coming off of a public right-of-way, just to make sure that they don't see any immediate glaring issues, you know.
With a second driveway?
With a second driveway proximate to another driveway, the questions I don't know, I need to ask.
Okay, so continue to May 28th?
Yes, if amenable with you.
Okay, so can I have a motion to continue the public hearing to May 28th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
so moving on to the appointment with Bobby's Ranch and the use of Emmett and the Shower Brook Conservation Area.
I do not have an update with this at this time.
Okay. Moving on to our 7:35 PM agenda item, it's a public hearing for Cartier 35 Keys Road, or Kais Road.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chris McKenzie from Dillis and Roy, here to present the project here.
And to read the legal notes. Under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and Westford's Non-Zoning Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 171, the Westford Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 14, 2025, at 7:35 p.m. in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall, 55 Main Street, to consider the notice of intention application of Gordon Chartier for removal of an existing septic system and installation of a new tank and pump chamber within 100 feet of Keys Pond and bordering land subject to flooding at 35 Keys Road, Assessors Map 040, parcel 0048.0000.
Good evening, Chris McKenzie from Dillis and Roy, here to present this project. Here's the pointer here. This is an existing two-bedroom house located right on Keys Road. The house is very close to Keys Road, and Keys Pond is, of course, right across the street. So we have a 100-foot buffer zone from the pond that runs right here. The existing septic system located in this cloud area has failed and needs to be replaced. So we're proposing a replacement system, leach area, up here on this hillside, well outside the 100-foot buffer now, probably almost 200 feet from the lake instead of just barely 50 feet. So we're moving it quite a bit back. There's an existing well located here as well for the property. And I believe that, yes, there's an existing well on the neighboring property. So that existing system is also in the radius, the 100-foot radius for both of those wells. So moving the leach area out here is going to be a marked improvement for the environmental conditions here. So the existing system and tank, the existing tank will have to be removed. It's probably undersized and fairly old and cracked. So it'll be removed and replaced with a new tank and a new pump chamber. We're going to run a force main right here up around this existing wall through the lawn area close to the property line here, and then up and around and up to the new leach area. We've proposed an erosion control barrier wrapping around the whole area, starting at the building here and up to the limits of the 100-foot buffer there. There's an existing driveway, and access is all over here. Access to get up here to work on this is going to be difficult. They brought a machine up through this way, I believe, or on this other side somehow, to get up there and work. The system we've proposed here in that location is a geomat system, which is a IA system that was approved by the state for situations like this. Eventually, I'm going to have Matt move to the page 2 on this, and we can show what a conventional system would look like in this application. We've asked for some local upgrades from the state regulations that will allow a reduction in for the groundwater offset to reduce down the amount of fill and disturbance in the area up where the system's going to be. We will be installing a poly barrier around the system as well to allow us to finish this grade off. Without the poly barrier, and if we were doing a conventional system, the fill would come all the way down, right up, all the way up against the building, up to the property line, and up to the property line over here, and it would be a massive, massive system. The construction of that would be nearly impossible, and I would certainly be very worried about rainstorms and rain events that would wash down that whole hillside. It would be pretty scary. So this is a way of minimizing the amount of disturbance is required for the system to get installed. There'll be very little fill that will need to be imported in. There'll be no removal of anything. Any excavation that goes on up here is going to be reused around the system. So there'll be no bringing stuff out. They may have to bring in some sand. There's a sand requirement around the geomat system. But other than that, they're going to probably have to bring it up bucket full at a time or something like that, because you're never getting a dump truck up that hill. It's not going to happen. So they're going to have to find a way to get material up the hill that is not going to include a dump truck.
Would it be something like a Bobcat?
Yeah, probably something like that, a Bobcat, or even what I've seen guys do in this kind of situation too is maybe they get a dump truck up into here, and then they put an excavator here, and they scoop it and put it up.
Long arm.
Yeah, and they just scoop it and put it up. It's not going to be an easy process, but there really is no way of driving, any kind of wheeled vehicle up that hill. It's not going to happen. Not without some major construction. I don't think anybody's going to want to pay for that. And you'd have to zigzag. You'd have to come over and you have to zigzag back and forth, and it'd be unreasonable to try and do here. It makes more sense just to lift all the material. And that's part of the reason why we chose the system we did, was to limit the amount of fill that would be required. If you could, Mac, if you could have page 2 of that in there, yeah. So in the bottom right over there. So the bottom right, this shows what a conventional system would be located here. This also shows a retaining wall impervious barrier required that would run from here, down, down, and around. That wall, if you look at that grade right there, is 226. 226 grade, and you got about a 219 there. So you're talking about a 7-foot wall in that location. And so if we didn't put a wall there, that grade would come all the way down, because the minimum grade that you can use there is a 2-to-1 slope. The existing grade, I think, is about a 1.5 to 1 slope. So it's steeper than the 2-to-1 slope, so we would never be able to get back, and we'd end up down at the bottom of the hill with that 2-to-1 slope. It would just be enormous. And it would also, like I said, fill all the way to the property line here and all the way to the property line here. That's why there's a wall there and a wall there.
How big is the tank you're proposing?
The tank is minimum required by the state code, 1,500 gallons.
Okay, so you're gonna fill the existing tank?
The existing tank will be crushed. They pump it out. Typically, in this situation, it would be pumped out. The cover would be crushed. It would be filled with sand and covered over. This situation, that new tank is going to go right in its spot. So it's going to have to be excavated out. That material will have to be removed from the site. It'd be concrete and all that, that kind of stuff. But that'll get removed from the site. Some portions of the existing system may need to be removed in order to install the pump chamber and the force main coming up and around through there.
So what's the location of the so is that where it says, is that the line that, no, I'm looking for the force main that goes up to the
right here.
leach field.
It's going to come up and around. This is an existing wall here.
Okay.
So it's going to come around the wall right through there and up around this tree, because we want to try to save the tree, because we don't want to disturb root systems that are in the slope already. So that's going to be trenched up right up to the
So like a 12-inch, a 6 or a 12-inch wide trench?
Probably closer to 2 feet.
Oh,
just
okay.
in order to be able to get it in there. They could probably do a skinnier one. The force main's only a 2-inch line, so it's a 2-inch pipe.
How deep does it get set?
What's that?
How deep, so the pipe goes below the frost line?
Yes, it either has to be below the frost line. By code, it has to either be 4 feet below the ground, below the frost line, or it has to have insulation. We typically, may not fit on this one, but we typically, oh yes, we do have a force main insulation detail on page 2, right down, right there. That shows that 2 foot minimum, and then,
So roughly 2.5 feet.
right, so roughly 2.5 feet to the bottom of the pipe, or if not, then they've got to put the insulation in.
So they've got to dig a 2 foot wide, 2.5 foot deep channel.
Right, yeah, you gotta make it, it'd be nice if you could only do it 6 inches wide, but you gotta be able to get in there and work.
But
around.
what I'm thinking about, because of the history on this hill and what's happened during significant rain events, is if they've got that channel open and we have a significant rain event, are we, given the steepness of the slopes, do we need to take preventative measures to avoid,
Collapse.
or not just,
Water comes out.
just a river coming down, yeah, Jim?
What's growing on this hillside
It's,
besides the one tree?
it's mature vegetation. It's,
Yeah.
it's all vegetated.
It's all trees and brush?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent root system, no bare patches, because I mean, that's quite the steep slope. And if we're gonna be working at the top of the hill like that, I'd just be real concerned about
Or just working,
runoff when the.
Yeah, going down the
the
slope.
rainstorm, yeah. Because the erosion control barrier is way down past the house.
Well, that's where the buffer zone is, so, and that's the limit of the work area. We could, if it was necessary, if you thought it was necessary, putting some kind of check dams along the trench going up. It's probably gonna be necessary anyways, to prevent erosion later once it's all done. And, you know, some kind of stabilization is
I
gonna
don't
be
think I've ever seen
required.
a septic field put in like this that's that high up a hill.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I've seen plenty of them.
There was another one house on this hill, right, which had a, what do you call that thing, the tank which they dump out?
A tight tank?
Was that?
A tight tank?
Yeah, tight tank.
That was this property.
This property?
it was proposed and never installed?
Yes. So it was proposed, the commission reviewed and approved, issued a negative determination of applicability for the installation of the tight tank. But the homeowner wanted to pursue, you know, the problem with the tight tank is you are pumping that out
4 times a year.
yeah, however often, you know, when needed. And, you know, so they've proposed, you know, this redesign for a non-tight tank system.
Well, if I've been doing these things for a long time, these septic system upgrades. A tight tank really should not have been approved by the Board of Health in this situation. Should not have been approved. A tight tank is supposed to be specifically only for situations where a system cannot be installed. And clearly on this design plan, we show that a system
You have
could
the
be
acreage
installed.
that it could be.
Yeah, there's no reason to put a tight tank on this. There's no legitimate reason to put a tight tank on this property.
So has the Board of Health seen this plan?
It's being reviewed by them, yeah.
Okay.
So where you, has there been any, so have you had to, so you've had to do deep hole tests in the location of the leach field?
Mhm.
Because the other thing that I'm concerned about is, given the structure of this hill, is if you encounter any large rocks or boulders.
Yeah, they'll have to be dealt with. I don't know what to tell you about that. I mean, they'll
Well, no,
have
but
to
it
be
just,
addressed
we
somehow.
like to know that all the things have been thought out.
Right. You know, if there's rocks and they need to be removed from the site, they'll be removed from the site. I don't, you know, if the owner wants to retain them for a wall or something.
Yeah, but it just is if it's difficult getting equipment up there, how are you going to deal with a big rock that finds itself right where you want to put the leach field?
Well, hopefully there isn't a rock that large there because that would cause a problem for the leach area. I'm not aware of
What was
any large boulders out there.
what was the
The
soils?
soil was a loamy sand and gravel.
Fine sandy.
Mm,
Loamy
Not
sand and
likely.
gravel with a 6-minute perk rate, so
Yeah,
it's
loam sand,
pretty granular.
sand and gravel. Yeah, nothing I'm seeing as,
It's not like Graniteville, right?
Hmm.
Not like Graniteville.
no, yeah, I think that would have, I think the ledge would have, I mean, they got down 90, you know, that's.
Oh, yeah, no, we didn't hit any ledge or
Okay.
anything like that.
Yeah,
There was
so-
no rockiness to the soil
Yeah.
to speak of, so I would be surprised if they found anything
Okay,
that would be large enough to be of any kind of concern. Certainly, if something's there, these machines, the excavators they have these days can really lift a pretty good-sized rock and move it around with the plow.
do we have any comments or questions from members of the audience? Hi, if you come up and tell us who you are and ask your question and make your comment.
Yes, Abigail O'Hara. I talked to the person that did the test pits up there, and they built a temporary road over the end of that wall to the right. That's how they went up. They didn't go up the other way because it's impossible to zigzag through all the trees. And he was up there, and what it doesn't show is right where that is it naturally starts
Do
to
you want to,
flatten.
there's a laser pointer here on the table that you can show us exactly on the map where you want us.
Alright,
Yeah,
it
great.
sort of naturally flattens out here, and the man that did the test pits, he did a test pit here and a test pit here, and he doesn't believe he's gonna hit any ledge, and he thinks that the boulders that he has there are quite manageable. He's done a lot of work on very steep slopes like this, and they will have to go up this way over the temporary road that they sort of made to go up here, and only non-wheeled equipment that's on a track can go up that slope.
That access between the end of the wall and the property line there is really the only way to get up on that hill.
Okay.
All right, you said you were likely, probably going to have to put some kind of additional erosion control barriers up in the vicinity of the field, right? I think I'd like to see that, just because
What-
it's a long way down and a long way across.
Well, what I was proposing was something along the force main line. The force main's gonna open up a trench about 2 feet wide. And that'll, this whole project should take less than a week to install. Shouldn't take any longer than that.
How long?
Relatively quick thing. My biggest concern would be the force main line going up. I would offer to put in some kind of controls along that so that water doesn't funnel down that, what would have been where that trench will run.
And the slopes on the side of the leach field,
It's grading there, yeah.
there's grading there and thinking about how long it'll take seeded, so that will be seeded, will take time to grow and establish. What about, putting some kind of a jute mat or whatever to, because summertime is when we get some of our really big impactful storms, is something like that to provide extra stabilization?
Yeah, I mean, where, to Jim's point, I think having erosion controls just below kind of this area, I think it, I mean.
Like a
During that
silt
one
fence
week.
type.
Silt fence straw wall, just as an additional precaution, because, other sites on this hill, currently, that were worked on and, just experience, the soils do move, and, I have the enforcement orders to prove it. So I think, if erosion controls could be installed just down gradient, shown on the plan as being installed down gradient of, the limit of grading for this, just so in the event we do get that July thunderstorm, or, 2 days of, prolonged precipitate,
A
2
hurricane.
inches, 2 inches, of precipitation. We're not relying on just the erosion controls at the bare bottom after we've picked up the velocity of 40 feet. Just as a precaution and,
So two things. Certainly, I think, a silt fence to run along that bottom of that slope, the proposed slope is a great idea. It's in the contractor's best interest to have something like that, because if something happens overnight, a big deluge or something, he's gonna come back in the morning and find all that work that he did down at the bottom of the hill. And so that's not gonna be good for them. Also, as part of the septic system requirements, that slope is required to be stabilized. That has to be stabilized. It has to be a stabilized slope. I've seen in the past contractors that tried to get away with not putting some kind of stabilization on there, on some system that was way out behind somebody's house, and they got cheap and didn't put any stabilization on there, and came back a few years later and a big gully had washed right through the whole system, right through the middle of it. And you could see the pipes and the stone and everything. So stabilization of the slopes over and around the system are a requirement and need to get done.
Yeah, but my thought more was those first weeks or whatever till stuff is, whatever they planned is established. Okay. Any other? So we need an updated plan with some of this additional detail in terms of the location of the erosion control during construction of the leach
Yep.
field.
I think you have the standard clauses about parking vehicles and gasoline containers and all that, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, if it's tough because for the first time, this is kind of like the opposite of how most, where the wetlands is along the road is. So, if machines and, fuels, hydraulic, I think that special condition, to the maximum extent practicable, if we can get it, to the back of kind of the lawn area, so that it's not in front, at its closest point to the wetland resources.
So that the equipment is on the inside of the erosion control?
Yes, that would be there. It'd be better.
You'd want to have.
Practically, you'd want to have that there anyways.
Okay.
But from the standpoint of storage overnight, if it's if there is equipment being stored while they're excavating the tank, putting in the new one, have it be located as far from the pond and the road as possible, just so in the event you have leaks and
You may not be able to put it on the slope.
right, yeah,
Leave it down.
right, we do have that language for maximum extent practicable.
Can't imagine buying
And you need to draft.
Yep, I'll draft that and
Recommendations.
confirm the system is approved by the Board of Health. So
We expect that at their next meeting.
When is their next meeting?
I don't know what they're, I've been informed that they don't require us to attend to present this meeting, this stuff to them, so.
Our next meeting is the 28th, so I was just curious whether, hopefully,
Right.
if it's,
it
because
may
if
be
it
next
was.
Monday, they may be on the first and third Mondays, maybe. I'll confirm, and if the commission, we can continue it to the
Okay,
28th,
so-
if it's not until after that, we just continue it, so that we, everything.
And that works, continue us till the 28th works for you? Can I have a motion to continue the public hearing to May 28th?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, see you then.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the 7:45 PM agenda item, it's a request for certificate of compliance by Moonkai, 73 Enmore Road.
You were handling all this. You guys are, I'll show Jeff's letter. So the firm that did the original plans for 73. This, if the commission recalls, was the demolition of an existing structure. Septic system was replaced, and then some hardscaping and some landscaping. Literally up until the edge of Nab Lake, there was railroad ties that were used to were used as a retaining wall in the water. So the removal of them was a benefit to the project. As provided in the commission's packet, there were a couple deviations known. Stone apron installed between the front entrance portion of the right side of the dwelling. Walkway and stairs on the left side of the dwelling were replaced with impervious pavers. And then they did include the plantings as native plantings were required. And the plan does show 7 Chinese silvergrass and 3 Norway spruces, which were planted, which are not native species. All the other plantings,
So why was the Norway spruce and the Chinese silvergrass planted? Why was that used?
On the tag, it said that, but it's called ornamental grass, so I don't know whether.
I don't know anything about Chinese silvergrass, but Norway spruce isn't a native.
Yeah, and so the Norway spruces, the 3 of those were, I mean, they are within.
Were they in the basic plan, the original plan?
I don't think they were in they weren't in the plan, but I think they were planted to provide screening between the 73 and 75, which again they are effective screening. The commission's kind of requirement for the hill slope from kind of the patio area down to the water was planted with holly, blueberry, high bush blueberries, and
If you look at the plan, not to interrupt you here, but the wall was built in this fashion. These were all the big stones we put down there, and then we put smaller ones on it, and it's all wrapped in with riprap like sitting on top of it. So the whole system right now is like Matt said. It used to be railroad ties right on the edge of the water. So now this thing is like immovable. I mean, this thing is just a fantastic situation, and which is something that you should really take in consideration as you move forward with any other projects in Westford. We did a similar one on Lakeshore Drive North with Rob Walters. And so, moving forward on Nab Lake, if people are doing wall design, this is definitely how you should do it.
How's the
So
wall?
it's very
How are
natural.
they held together?
What's that?
How are they held together? Is it mortar?
No, they're all placed and they're filled in between with smaller stone. And there's fabric in there, and then 3/4 stone is put on that, and then bigger riprap is put on top of that.
Oh, so no,
So it's totally,
just stone.
yeah, it's stone, it's just, and then we have the retaining walls, like the ideal block kind of ones, just to retain the different terracing portions on it. But it allows you to put, look at, this is all planting. This is all planting on every single one of those levels. So if you're dealing with and it's an amazing amount of plants in there.
Jim?
What had the order of conditions indicated in terms of the planting? It wasn't in the original
It was-
plan?
yeah.
It was going to be written up or something?
it was native species. There was an annotated plan. It was blueberries,
Okay.
This-
arborvitae, and I forget what the third
And it-
species was, but I think it ended up becoming holly, whether it
Which is
was,
fine.
Yeah, this is all blueberry, yeah.
The Norway and the
All blueberry, yeah, all
Chinese
blueberry.
silvergrass. We shouldn't be putting that stuff
I
in.
did some internet research on the Chinese
That I
silvergrass.
don't know about, but
Eh,
Norway spruce.
No, yeah, well, so I thought, yes, the Norway spruce is non-native. I don't know that we have a problem with it becoming invasive.
No.
I don't think so.
I haven't seen anything about
But
that.
what the, and I sent Matt a list of about half a dozen government and non-commercial websites that Chinese silvergrass spreads extensively by seeds. It also spreads by rhizome. It is actually now considered invasive in a number of eastern states.
So it's a non-native and.
It's a non-native, and one of the comments was it escapes cultivation, and I look at all the problems that we have with Japanese knotweed and other things.
I don't think we can do anything with this, but Matt, in the, do
Well-
you have like a draft order of conditions that you start with whenever you write up a new
Well,
one?
no,
If you
There are
do-
only little plants in the back portion of those things. I could easily pop them out if you want.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
just put bark mulch like it was
I'm
required.
thinking about future use, future orders of conditions that get issued, not for this property, but for the next one and the next one. We shouldn't be putting in non-native species.
Yeah, well, the condition required native species to be planted.
But, yeah, and
That calls out native species. So again, I don't know whether it was, in ornamental grass, there are native ornamental grasses,
Yeah,
the
if we
little
could get
blue stem,
something
big blue
native-
stem.
We put that in, there was a recommendation from,
yeah, and that's where burning bush used to come from.
well, what I'm saying is it was a
Yeah.
recommendation to use it.
Yeah, and I'm not faulting that. I'm just, nowadays I take those recommendations with a grain of salt.
Okay.
What
Like
what
one-
others,
like
I mean,
I-
I've
I
spent
think he
enough.
said he could pull them out.
Yeah,
very
and
easily.
I've spent enough time dealing with invasives that if it can be done now, it's going to save us aggravation down the road. So,
Yeah. The spruce, I guess, is okay, because that's not gonna
Yeah, and-
spread or anything.
Our neighbor's got one, they just have real shallow roots that
mhm.
make the ground pretty rough.
Where are the spruces again?
They're right on the
The
left
three
side.
stars.
1, 2, 3.
Three, okay.
Yeah, but no, if you can replace it with something native.
I mean, I didn't have to put them in, the
Okay.
letter of conditions required me to put this in and not anything else, any
Okay.
other filler.
Yeah.
I could have mulched it, so I can pop them out and mulch it. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
It's invasive. According to Convicio's out of Sudbury, it's not, so.
Well, and it may not be in Massachusetts, but in other southern Appalachian states, it's gotten that bad. So it may not be, there were-
Connecticut has, Connecticut has found it to be invasive. So if we can avoid it,
let's avoid it.
Do you want me to, I guess the question is, you want me to remove it?
yes.
Okay.
And table this to the commission's next meeting and we'll just confirm,
That they've been removed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's it.
That's it, simple. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the information about the wall, because,
Yeah, I'll try to take a couple. I didn't think to take pictures because, hey,
Part of the reason I say this, I come back to the commission with the exact same setup.
okay, well, but just, we've seen similar projects. I think we saw one that was needing to do something like this on Lawn Sought for, so Nab's not the only lake where this might be
And it
worth.
should, I mean, there's a lot of places, especially on the southern side of the lake that has.
Lake action?
Well, it's just, the issues that you were bringing up with the guy before me here about just a big hill and everything erodes down. I mean, nobody does anything on that side because of the hill, and everything that's on that side washes into Nab Lake. So,
Okay,
yeah, well, if you can do it in the next 2 weeks, I'll go out and confirm.
tomorrow, take me 5 minutes.
where are you gonna dispose of them?
What's that?
Where are you going to dispose of them?
Not your yard.
Lumberyard?
Not your yard.
Actually, I'd probably take them to Chelmsford. And,
All right, not my 33 square miles, I'm good.
No, I'd take them to community, where they grind all that stuff up.
Okay.
It's only 7 plants. Is that it? You done?
Yeah, I have no further, that was it, and
Then you're gonna beat me up, what's the date you coming, I gotta come back then?
No,
point
no, I
is.
mean, I'll put you,
Yep.
I'll put you first. If you can, you do it tomorrow, I'll put you first. Get you in and out. Yeah, maybe second, but we gotta take care of you.
Don't make empty promises. Good night.
Good night. Continuing on to our 7:50 PM agenda item, it's a request for certificate of compliance for Santorio, 1 Mark Vincent Drive.
This address may be familiar to the commission as the homeowner this past fall filed a request for determination of applicability to remove some tall pines. You can actually kind of see the empty voids, actually. Included the plan of record, which was a hand-drawn sketch, likely by my predecessor. We pulled the property assessor's, the assessor's card. The proposed garage was to be 24 by 23, and it ended up at 24 by 25. The area where it was constructed was driveway previously. It's been 20 plus years. The site is stable. I'd recommend the commission issue a certificate of compliance as it was constructed in substantial conformance.
I have a motion to issue motion to issue a certificate of compliance for DEP file number 334-1228.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Moving on to our 7:55 PM agenda item, discussion issue enforcement order for 7 and 8 Colonel Rolls Drive.
I was out. My apologies for not having the draft enforcement order finished for this meeting. I was out recently to one of the properties abutting the open space associated with the Colonel Rolls subdivision. Went out there, meeting with a homeowner who had questions about trees. I observed 12 pieces of windblown trash, plastic foam sheeting used in packing construction supplies, had blown from the open top dumpster into the wetland resource area. I wanted to get the commission's input for my initial thought, as the builder and developer had mentioned on site that they have laborers coming weekly to make sure that clean up any trash that gets blown.
They have what coming weekly?
Laborers to pick up any windblown trash, but only weekly, once a week. I don't know if the bare minimum, I would like to order that they are to be on site 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, not just on Fridays, before the weekend. Additionally, I don't know if the commission would like to issue any fines for the per piece of trash that was blown into the. Again, you don't need to think of. You can think about it now. Again, I can draft this up for the next meeting, but this was the second time that I had spoken with that trash had blown into the buffer, into the wetland for this project.
Would they have done nothing if you didn't say something?
I don't know. I mean, again, I was there and, taking photos. One of the managers of the site came down, saw me and said, "Oh, we'll get, somebody here to clean this up." And that was a Tuesday following a windy weekend. So what happened to Monday, did you know, who's not looking at it Monday, again, if it was related to erosion controls, we expect those to be maintained and monitored daily. And, if you're noticing
Maybe if you fine him, he'll remember that.
between that and the increase, a contract or some agreement, saying that these, that people will be on site 3 times a week, 2 times, you know, I think 3 times a week again, you know, with Monday, you know, with Saturday and Sunday being the off days that, you know.
With a phone call if there's something happens in between.
Did they put a cover on the dumpster?
Well, that's also one of the other pieces that, thank you for reminding me, that was, you know, figure out some way to, you know, magnetically tarp it down. I mean, you know, stuff doesn't get blown out of the truck, you know, trucks doing 70 down 495, so, you know, you can, something magnetized.
It's a question of how concerned they are about it.
Right, you know, and so, you know, to Marilyn's point, you know, between the increase of frequency of the monitoring, you know, somebody going out and, you know, doing something so that we're not just collecting windblown, you know, we're not doing anything to address the root cause. But also to Marilyn's point, you know, you know, this is you know, it's not nothing, and, you know, if this happens again, we can, you know,
Well, we got 2 strikes already, right?
that's my, so I can draft.
It's like if I wasn't here,
Or draft,
still
for
be
discussion purposes, put a $100 fine in it so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah,
And then we'll talk about it next.
right, yeah, I just, you know, start, if
So
that's,
that's where mine is started.
That's,
Yeah.
right, because that's where I'd like to start too, because that's two
Yeah.
times it's happened. And if it happens a third time, then.
well, I mean, if it happens a third time, it's another enforcement order, and we can, you know, it's up to $300 per day per violation, and again.
$100 isn't much, but I think it.
Well, was the first instance you saw as much?
It was
stuff?
not as much as this.
Okay, so there wasn't as much in the wetland the first time?
No.
But it happened.
It was wind
So
blown.
maybe it's a collection of a little more each time. as
Yeah,
opposed to taking it out.
And
That's
that's,
what it feels like.
right, and so, you know, having it be addressed, you know.
But, yeah, so the fine's in there
Yep.
for the start of discussion.
you know,
Right.
Okay.
fine, cover. Okay. On to the discussion and action items. I do not have anything for 20 Keys Road.
What was Keys Road again?
They were doing some re-siding and some kind of just construction, like some leftover siding pieces were put at the edge of in the buffer, potentially in the floodplain. Again, it's hard to actually figure out what's where without any signage, so. With respect to the Stony Brook Conservation Area, the hiring of the beach attendant, I need to follow up with the Recreation Department. I need to schedule discussions with the camp operators following up from last year and going into this year. Do not have any update on repairs using the Friends of EDC money.
You did, but you.
I've identified, I just have not been
Okay,
able to.
so we need to reach out to the second person for a quote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Edwards Woods, actually, that's something I can share with this. A resident emailed our office over the weekend, regarding a youth on a dirt bike, mini bike, using the trails, using the area roads, and I forwarded that to the police captain, requesting that a car be more present in that area. The captain responded to me this morning that the area car spoke with who I believe to be the offending party, saying that, and their parent said that they don't do that, and so hopefully, with increased attention, from the police department and, the area patrol car activities are curtailed.
Okay.
With respect to Freedom Park, I have a quote from a surveyor. I just need to get a purchase order through our end, and then we can have that done. I'm hoping to have that done after Memorial Day, so that the Memorial Day ceremonies on site aren't don't have
Are the
flag.
ceremonies there on Memorial Day as well?
That's Sunday, Sunday
Because I
Memorial
know
Day.
in town, there's always the big one, right?
Yeah,
And then
well,
I-
actually,
I think
Launch over there?
what?
I think something from the Mattawanaki
Oh.
American Legion, they do something.
But I thought that, because last year they threw, and I don't know if it's an annual tradition, but that they throw a wreath into the pond.
Yeah, we were there for that.
For last year, but last year was also the installation of that monument,
The Sullivan.
for Francis
Sullivan.
Sullivan.
Yeah.
But that's the question is whether they annually throw that
I think they do.
wreath into the pond. There's a ceremony, where they do that. But also reaching out to DPW in terms of,
Yeah, getting it.
making sure that, we get on their mowing schedule.
Yes. I have not have an update on the Summer Village Conservation Restriction Amendment. It's, last I know it was with the state. I can ask to see if the attorneys, the law firm that was assisting with it, has heard anything. The Long Sauffer Pond fireworks, water quality sampling. I've been in touch with the property manager at Summer Village, requesting that they provide, if they're going to have it, because again, they need to, if they're going to do it, they need to be on, the commercial fireworks company's schedule in advance. If they are planning on doing it, to let me know the date so that we can align. She was amenable to providing that information for us.
What kind of lead time do we need to arrange with our vendor for getting
I don't think much. It's I'd have to look back at the contract, but I mean, it may be
a day or two?
Yeah, I mean, it may a week.
A week,
you know,
okay. So as long as she gives us that much lead time, we
Right,
can
and
get it
again,
done.
I think there's a greater lead time to the company doing the fireworks.
Fireworks,
So.
okay.
Jarvis Hill Estates, I need to follow up with the trustee. I stopped out last week. And the bike jump was still there, so to see what their time. I also know that we've had some fairly wet weekends, so I may just not have aligned with. See when they're proposing to get to it.
When you can get it done.
Yep. Minutes.
Have people had a chance to review the minutes? Any comments or changes? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes for April 23rd, 2025?
Second.
I abstain.
So all in favor, we've got 4, none opposed, and you're an abstention. Okay? Have people had a chance to review the executive session minutes that Matt sent out? Any comments or corrections?
No.
So can I have a motion to approve the executive session minutes for March 12th, 2025, but not for release?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
No site visits to report. Site visit, we took a walk with the Sudbury Valley trustees around Stony Brook Conservation Land. We walked almost the entire property. I think the only part we missed was over by the Bat Cave in that region. From there down to the Nancy Rosinski bench. But other than that, they got a good sense of the whole property, and they're starting the process of doing the transfer of the conservation restriction from,
They're doing their due diligence.
yes, yes. It'll be a while, but.
They didn't say no.
We gave them an idea of the problems we've been having on certain parts of the property, as well as things like the paving, the roadways, tree maintenance, all kinds of stuff like that. So we answered their questions, and they had a nice, went for a nice walk. Was it 4 miles?
Yeah. That was a long walk.
I thought it was closer to 5.
It could have been. You felt it.
Yeah. 3 hours.
And we didn't avoid the hills.
Yeah.
So that was about it.
And that was Jim, Margaret, and myself.
Yes.
And then with members of the Westford Land Preservation Foundation, a couple residents, and the Sudbury Valley trustees. I will look to schedule a site visit to Edwards Woods just to, at the end of Hemlock, just so members can, commissioners can take a look and see.
Yeah. Jim, do you walk down there?
Not as much as I used to, but yeah, I do.
Is
That's where I found the guys with the hatchets chopping the trees down.
next year?
Is Matt and I were talking about whether we have some of us park at the end of Woodbine and some park on Hemlock, or, thinking that both of those places weren't big enough for everybody.
I wouldn't get down. It shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Well, and the advantage of parking on Hemlock is it lets people know we're paying attention.
Excuse me?
Parking on Hemlock lets people know we're
Yes.
keeping track of the
Yes.
site.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and just as a update, I did receive a draft of the conservation restriction for the open space parcel, a draft of the CR for the open space parcel associated with Wendell Place, the subdivision off of Nutting Road. The developer is in the process of having that reviewed through the state, and I've asked to kind of be kept abreast of their progress. Just, again, I've kind of offered some comments related to regular comments the commission has with respects to the CRs that the town holds. Composting on the open space parcel, just, I always think that gets into murky waters, as opposed to, and I think homeowners think that they can dump their grass leaves out there, and, that's
Are
not.
there landscapers?
Yeah, right, and that's not, that's not the intent of, and so I just typically ask that just be removed so that there's no kind of ambiguity, yep, but that's all. And if any of the commissioners or any of the public still watching at home has any interest in volunteering on the Conservation Commission, please submit your CAFs. You'll hear this early and often until the seat gets filled. So.
So if there's nothing else, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.